look, I don't know if you remember this trend back in the day, you know, like I'm a bit okay, let's open it up this way, okay? So I like to text. They're like texting and all that stuff, you know, like on the keyboard and whatnot, you know, all that keyboard on your phone, and you know, doing swipe or doing something. I love texting. I think texting is a really great way to converse. It's something that I've grown up with, right? So all the way back in like the early years of life itself. Right, so I texted. I loved it. I actually preferred it more so than calling. I think calling is just, you know, just a bit more tedious than that. You have to like interpret their sounds and whatnot. In texting, you can just wait. You can wait, and you can research whilst you're talking with them. Like if they say something. If they say something you don't understand, you can do like a quick 3 or 5 second Google search and being like, what is this? You know, like all that stuff. So you can take your time with it, right? And there's many methods of texting, right? There's many methods, and that's what I want to talk about, because again, I love texting. I do love it. It's a great way. It's a great medium of communication for sure. And there's my way. I'll tell you my way of texting first. Okay, I will show you my way of texting first. And I love texting. I just hit the mic, but I text by giving short bursts of messages, right? And I've always done that. I always did the short bursts of messages because I like to convey one thought at a time, right? And that came from my habits of when cell phones were brand new. Okay, not necessarily brand new, but like I would say texting was brand new, and it was a lot easier to text when you have to press multiple buttons. You know, you have to press the 7 and the 5 and the 7 again just to say something, and it was easier to just, you know, text in small bursts, right? And that really just got my habits ingrained a bit more, right? And that got me through like the messenger days and all that stuff, and then gaming days as well, where in video games, this is where I think my texting came from. In video games, you can't write an entire paragraph when you're talking to someone in a video game because the chat box is so small, right? And when a chat box is crazy small, you have to type in short bursts. That way they can read it in the very small kind of notification box that you have. So that way they don't have to open your message and stuff like that. So I really did evolve my habits of texting through the different mediums of which I use texting for, right? And that would be video games. That would be like olden day cell phones. And I don't know if you remember this. I don't know how many all of my listeners out there, I don't know which one of you still remember the old way of texting, or if you've seen it before, but it's like you don't have a keyboard. You only have the letters, or sorry, you only have the numbers and obviously in the pound sign and the asterisk, the star sign, right? So you only have those. And each letter or each number corresponds to or has multiple different letters in it. So like the number 1, I think, had A, B, C, D or something like that. So in order for you to get the B, you have to click the 1 twice. So like A, B, so 1, 1, right? And then if you wanted to get an A, so if you wanted to spell bad, you had to go 1, 1, wait a bit so that it would register, then another 1. So you get B and then an A, and then you would go, so ABC was the was 1, D, E, F was 2. So we go 1, 1, 1, and then 2. Then all of a sudden you went bad, right? And that was how you did it, right? And that was so tedious in texting. I think that was the most tedious thing, and that's the reason why there's a lot of those abbreviations. Like if you just wanted to type out U, because there was a character limit back then as well, you had to if you wanted to type U, you would just put the letter U. Or if you wanted to type your, like you are, or like your, you would put U and an R. That was it. That was how you did it back in the day. because texting was so primitive back then, but it was still good. It's still good. I loved it. It was just primitive back then, right? And that's where I kind of want to like take this podcast into like that kind of route. Like, how did you text before? Like, what is your texting methods? Why did you text the way that you text? Because I know some people, here's the thing, I know some people have irks about texting, okay? And I don't know where it developed. I have no clue when it developed, because for me, right? So let's start off with the question that I have. Do you think that just responding with K, you know, just a capital or short K, just the letter K, 1K, do you think that that is a malicious thing to text someone? Not malicious, but like, is that something that conveys emotion, right? So, or like, does it convey emotion or not? Because I will tell you one thing, as I told you back in the day, right? Back in the day when texting was brand new, you would write short bursts because it's very tedious to write a response. So if someone were to give you like a message or a text and you needed to reply very, very quickly, you would just type down one letter. Because for you to type down even one letter, and it's like in the back end, so like, so if you're gonna type down just E or F, you would click 3 times or 2 times to get even F, right? So if you're gonna write down like okay or yes, you know, it's so much more. And now that's the reason why that developed is just like the one letter or one, like, you know, response answers. That was fine for me. That's fine for me because we grew up with that. There was no malicious intent. There was no like, you know, like, I'm just gonna do this because, like, you know, I don't like them. Like, no, it's not that. It's not that at all. For me, at least. I don't know. But because I grew up with it, right? So, but now I don't know when it changed. But when you type down K, just that, people think that you're very mean, you know? You're like, what? Like, oh my gosh. Like, I can't believe it. Like, what happened? Like, what, but what, why? How? Like, you know, when people say you read between the lines, can you actually read between the lines when there's only one line? How many, like, you can't, you honestly, you really think that you can read between the lines when there's literally one letter? There's not even a line. It's just one letter. There's no reading between the lines. They just like, that was a very good response. That was it, right? So that's it. That's all it is for me. Again, for me at least, because that was the nature of texting back in the day, right? Back in the old days, back in the old times, that was the way that texting was, and I still carry some of those kind of some habits because, again, it's easier for me. So I know that in light of newer texting methods, it's now seen as it's dry. Like, just having one word or one letter response is just like one of those. It's just dry. Like, it's just, okay, well, you know, they don't want to talk to me because it's dry. Like, oh, hey, putting down K is dry. Let me tell you something. When my family texts me, sometimes they just get a red. just like a red receipt. That's it. Oh, you read it? All right. You know, like, they just get a red receipt. And they've learned over the days, over the course of like understanding and living with me and understanding with me and all that stuff, just being my parents and my family, they realize that, like, oh, hey, Damien actually doesn't mean any of that at all. Damien does not mean any of that at all. And they are just being like, hey, guess what? He's just, that's how he is. That's it. Like, and oftentimes my parents would be like, hey, can you just respond to this at least? I know that you've read it because you opened it. Can you just give a response at least? That way I know for sure that you've finished reading it. So when I get some of their text messages like, hey, we'll be coming over. And I'm just going like, okay, done. That's it. That is it. That is absolutely it. That's all it is. And I don't have, and it's not even like that's what they wanted. You know, I've read it. That's what they wanted. And that's what it is. So, like, I'm busy. I got a lot of things to do, you know? I'm busy. I don't have time to write down an entire paragraph, and that's it, right? And I know it's different for everyone. It is different for everyone. So I want to know. There's other times as well. I'm not gonna lie to you. There's other times also where proper grammar. let me learn you something real quick. I think everybody knows this, but proper grammar really also does get people like I don't know if this is I don't know if this is something that's like really looked at it in a weird way, but when you have capitals at the start of your at the start of every single one of your sentences, right? You have a capital. And then people are like, capital, like, are you mad at me? Like, what's going on? Like, why are you mad at me? Like, why are you being so like polite or whatever? Like, what is going on? Like, no, it's because my phone, you know, my phone just automatically capitalizes the letters. I'm not too sure what you want. And oftentimes, again, it's about habits, right? Oftentimes you want to develop a habit that you want to progress and continue on other different things. Like, let's say you're writing an email for work. Again, as I said before, I have a day job. I don't want to have to switch up my different habits. If I have to write professionally at work, I don't want to be like, all right, I got to switch it up now. Like, maybe for my games I don't use a capital, but maybe for my emails I will do capitals and stuff like that. So I just capital everything. And some people really find that that's not cool. And I like to also have like grammar as well. I like grammar. Like, I would want to put down a period or an exclamation mark or something like that. It's just proper, right? And it's not something that's any sort of like, oh hey, they hate me and stuff like that. I can't believe they want to stop the conversation because there's a full stop. Full stop, by the way, if you don't know, is the period. There's just stop is just you know, a comma kind of thing. That's what it is. And I think letter wise, I don't know why I'm saying this. It's kind of weird. But that's exactly what I'm trying to say, is that like you want to develop habits and you're just carrying those habits into another medium of texting, and all of a sudden people think that like, why are they mad at me? But it really isn't it. So when I use periods in my messaging, sometimes people are texting, sometimes people are like, are you mad at me? I'm like, no, why? Like, what's going on? Like, I just say no. Why? No, dot, no, full stop, space, Y, like W, like a capital WHY question mark. That's what I say. So when someone says that, I will literally go capital NO, full stop, space, capital WHY question mark. And it's like very proper. And it's like, well, because you used a period. I'm like, who cares if I use a period? And then sometimes I see it in my emails now where I'm missing grammar mistakes. I'm having grammar mistakes because I have really weird texting habits. Oh my goodness. It's one of those things where I just don't want to develop the habit, you know? And people think that it's weird. I had one of my friends thought that they were mad at me. And they didn't speak to me for like 2 days. And then I reached out to them and like, hey, what's up? Like, what's going on? All that stuff. And they're like, oh, you're not mad at me? I'm like, what? When have I been mad at you? And they're like, well, no, you just seemed like you were mad. I'm like, how did I seem mad? We haven't seen each other for like a couple of days. How did I seem mad? I'm like, well, you were messaging me, like, you know, like, no. And this is where I want to come to a conclusion with this, is that I have to watch out how I say things. And now I've actually developed a habit, and I think this is fine. I guess this is completely fine to develop this habit. But the habit of just asking or asking people, like, you know, like, hey, do you like short answers, or do you feel that is, you know, something like that, like something that's not cool? And sometimes people will say yeah, you know, that's cool, and some other people will say no, it isn't. Like, I you know, I don't feel that it is. So I have to cater to that person. However, hear me out, it's not for everyone, okay? So this is where I draw the line. It's not for everyone, okay? I reserve that energy to spend more energy on a text message. Oh my gosh, my slurs. The English is not working right now. I reserve that energy for the people that I care about to actually spend that energy, right? Because imagine you have to do that for every single person, and you have to now watch out your speech everywhere. And now you're very self-conscious and very hyper-fixated on the way that you text message someone, right? So, and that is draining to you. And this is where I get into the habits of texting, because there are ways that texting really does affect people mentally, emotionally, all that stuff, because it is an unknown thing. Language, right? Language has a lot of things to do with body language, like with the way that your body is moving, and also your facial expressions, right? Even now, you don't know, but my facial expressions are moving as I'm talking, because that's, you know, I'm a trained actor, number one. So like, that's the reason why I always have to have some sort of movement in my face to convey emotion easier, because guess what? Your body responds to the entire body. And that includes your voice and stuff. So you know how people say you can hear people when they're smiling. That is completely true. You can hear a smile because it is conveyed through your entire body. And I'm also tapping, you know, I'm also tapping and moving my hand on my table to convey more emphasis. And I'm even doing it now. When I said emphasis, I actually tap my fingers on the table, and that's and you can convey that. And texting doesn't have that. Even calling doesn't have that. People have now gone to FaceTime because at least you can see all of that, right? But calling doesn't have that. Texting especially doesn't have that. So now you are reading into a lot on a text message, reading a lot into it, and that's draining. And it is. I understand it. It is draining because I've gone through there. It is draining. It's so draining to the point where sometimes you don't even want to text, and you're leaving it for like a couple of days, and all of a sudden you miss it. And then they text you back and be like, hey, you left me on red. What's going on? To the point where you're just like, maybe I'm just not going to go ahead and read it. And now people have the habits of texting. And they're like, no, like they're trying to fake it off. Like they're being like, I'm just gonna read the notification, like the thing that pops up in the front page or your home screen. You're like, I don't want to read it. Or like I've seen people in Snapchat being like, they're having tricks where they only swipe it halfway, and they're trying to read the message without giving the read notification. They're just trying to swipe it halfway to see. And it's like, what? Like you're literally doing so much effort because you don't want to look like you've ignored them and stuff. And it's not ignoring. You have a life as well, right? The thing that I love a lot of things about texting. I think it's a great medium, as I said before. But it's become so it's become so ubiquitous to everyday life that now people treat it as like, you know, people don't really learn how to text anymore. They just kind of like do it as because it's always existed, and they put too much emphasis on it instead of doing the thing that, you know, you can just leave it alone for a bit. You know, it's not an immediate thing. If someone texts you, why are you expecting an immediate action? Why are you expecting that? That doesn't make any sense. Texting was there to make sure, like pagers, texting was there to make sure that, like, you know, there's a message there, they can read it whenever they need to, and, you know, that's it. And the same way with voicemails on phones. Sometimes you're busy, sometimes you don't want to answer because, like, let's say you're in the shower, and then it's a voicemail. There you go, done deal. That's the same thing with text messages. It's not an immediate thing. It's only an immediate thing if you're like in a video game and you're right beside each other, knowing that you're not there, or people have like non-AFK or something like that. I don't know what it is, dude. all you know is that there is obviously a side effect in communication when texting was more ubiquitous, right? And with texting being more ubiquitous, it really does lead to like how do you text? Like is texting now a thing to kind of relearn for everyone? And I've seen all these things in dating apps as well, where they're like no, like not dating apps, not dating apps, like in terms of like relationship building and stuff like that, where TikToks are like, oh, if they don't text you in 0.005 seconds, then they're not interested in you. Or another thing where it's like, oh, if they text you too fast, they're too eager, that's not a good sign. Or like, oh, hey, if they don't text you within 5 business days, then they're not into you. Or like, oh, if they text you within the hour, that's also not good. Something like that. I don't know what it is. I literally don't know what it is. Like, I will text you when I'm on my phone. I will text you immediately when I'm on my phone. So if I'm on my phone already and I see your text and I want to talk to you, you know, if I want to talk to you and I'm on my phone, then go ahead. I will do that. If another person that I want to talk to also texts me, right? If it's an emergency, like for example, like my parents say like, oh, hey, can you open the door? Sure, I will go and I will answer to them because they're the immediate priority. Not because I didn't want to talk to you, other person, but it's because the immediate priority is the people right there in front of me right now. And that's what I wanted to text. And that's it. No, like slight, no shade on you. It's the fact that I had other pressing things that mattered in the current now situation of my life that I just didn't have time to text, and I will text you back. If I forget, it's because, again, I was busy. Literally nothing. Like if I tell you I don't like you, or if I really don't like someone, I will not talk to them. I will not. There's how many people are there in the world now? There's hundreds. Nah, I will not gonna say hundreds of billions. No, let's not go there. I think there's like 8 billion people around the world, and you're telling me that I need to, if every single one of them texted me right here, right now, that I should respond to each one of them at the same priority level? I'd say cap to that. I'm not gonna do that. I have priorities. I have levels of, I have levels of priorities, right? That I wanna, take care of the things that are top priority, and then go all the way down to the bottom, because it's reality. It's reality that I have other I don't want to say priorities again, but other priorities that need taken care of before that. Like, for example, if I'm hungry, right? If I'm hungry and I need to cook something, I'm not going to text while cooking. And if you think that is a normal thing to do, your expectations are way too high in terms of content. Because yes, it's fine if you're right beside the person, you can talk and also, talk with your mouth and also cook at the same time. Very easy for me to do because my hands are not preoccupied and my mouth is not preoccupied. Therefore, they can do this. You can do simultaneous things. If I'm texting and I also want to cook, both of my hands are preoccupied with another thing. So I have to choose one or the other. And because I'm hungry, I will go ahead and choose to cook, because that's what I want to do, because I'm hungry, right? So it's not anything about that. So all these things surrounding text messaging, or surrounding the whole atmosphere of like, oh, hey, text messaging is, just think about it this way, right? Think about it this way. If they care a lot about text messaging or something like that, they really care a lot, and they think that it's a bad thing and they don't tell you about it. Again, communication is key here, right? And texting is just a medium of communication. It's a vehicle for you to communicate. It's to use for communication. So if they really have a problem of or an issue of your texting habits, they will tell you. If they really care, they will tell you, being like, hey, like just like my parents now tell me, like, hey, Damien, can you respond to this text message so that I know you have at least read it? So every time now, oops, I hit my mic again. Every time now, I tell them. Like if they say, like, hey, we're coming over, yeah, if they say, hey, we're coming over, I'll just be like, okay, at least now they know that I've read it. I know the read receipt's there, but at least they know that I've read it and I've actually acknowledged that I've read it. Okay. Or I put K, right? Usually I just put K now. I used to put okay, but like I just put K now, or say cool, whatever. Like, because cool is now one of those, one of the automatic replies, you know, like, oh, suggested replies. But that, just ask them. If you really don't like the way that they're text messaging you, just ask them, and they will gladly respond if they care, right? If they really do care, they'll gladly respond. Or if they're, you know, a nice human being, then they will respond. I assume many people are nice human beings, you know, like I will say that until they prove otherwise, then they're just a crappy human being. But that's it, right? Texting, it's crazy. I love it. But I know that there are limitations to texting, and I know that there are some stigmas. Should I say stigma? Should I say stigma? There's stigmas to texting. And if you have one of those, just really think about it. Like, don't burden your own self, because communication takes two people, right? Don't burden yourself by wondering, like, did they really mean that? Like, what did they mean by that? Literally just ask them, hey, what did you mean by that? Question mark. That's it. That's really it. If you don't like, hey, hey, I would prefer, like hey, like one word answers, kind of, I don't know. I don't know if it's annoyed. Like, hey, one word answers are like kind of make me sad or whatever. Like, just convey that to them. And you're like, could you do something that's not one word, you know, something like that. And if they really did care, then yeah, they'll do it, right? And I know that it's putting your own vulnerabilities out there, but that's communication in a nutshell. So there you go. I went from texting to communication. That's what the podcast does. And to communicate, this episode is over. So bye.